hear about licensure?
Wow, there were rumors about it going on probably ever since I've been in the field of respiratory, way back in late 60s, but it became serious probably early mid-70s. California, I think, was the first state that actually passed a law, licensed respiratory care practitioners. Then New Mexico shortly after, and Florida wasn't too far behind. Somewhere in that time frame, the AARC became interested on a national basis and started kind of promoting the idea through the various states. And a few of us in Michigan sort of took the bait and got serious and started, formed a committee, a licensure committee with the MSRC, started working seriously in that direction to put something together for our state. And there were some legitimate concerns about licensure from some of the sincere leadership within the respiratory therapy community, a fear that the license would kind of box you in and limit the scope. And back in the 70s and early 80s, respiratory was a growing, expanding field, and there was, I think, a very legitimate concern that license could be limiting the future potential for what respiratory care could become. So that's really dependent on how licensure bills were put together as to how much limitation it would be, but that was a real serious concern. The majority of people in the profession, the people out there in the trenches, probably were pretty skeptical. It was a threatening kind of thing. There's fear. I mean, licensure means you've got to take that responsibility for yourself, and there's some rigidity to it, and that frightens people. Maybe you have to pass a test. Maybe, what if you couldn't pass the test, and so on. I mean, there's a lot of on-the-job trained people at that point, and nobody knew for sure how this thing was going to take shape. So I'd say probably a majority of people might not have been too enthused. There was this nucleus again, some of the leadership within the MSRC that felt it was a necessary endeavor to pursue. And so there was a gaining momentum, and that group trying to convince the rest of the world that licensure was a positive thing for the field. The legislature, the House and the Senate, was not a problem. In fact, Michigan we were probably one of the first half dozen states or so that actually submitted a bill, and it got favorable votes and so on in committees and up through the House and whatnot. But at the governor's office, it was absolutely blocked for many, many years. There was no way that the governors in Michigan would sign any kind of licensure bill for that fear that it might restrict the supply of people and drive up cost of health care, which is obviously a big issue, especially in an industrialized state like Michigan.